let me introduce Amelia. And so Amelia runs a talent marketplace called Business Talent Group, which is an international, multinational firm and has annual revenues exceeding $50 million. She is the co-CEO and the co-founder of this company. I've known her for 8 years, and we live here both in Southern California, and been good friends. She was a healthcare entrepreneur and a management consultant. She's also the author of 2 books, and Amelia and I are joined together in our passion about encouraging professional women and entrepreneurs recognize their strength and potential and take the world by its, I won't say the word, take the world on. So Amelia, I started my career applying artificial intelligence to identify cancer cells. A veterinarian friend asked me to develop a reminder system for vaccinations for veterinarians for his animal hospital. As he used it, I realized there was a big company and this was a huge opportunity. And this was a great product. And I ended up providing animal hospital plans across Canada, USA, with some clients in Hawaii and England also. So that is how I first became an entrepreneur and became hooked. So what got you in the world of startups? Can you share something about it with us?
Of course. I love starting. I realized I had the startup bug. I was a consultant with McKinsey & Company, big giant, going around the world. It's a great place to start your career. But then I got pulled in actually in the first .com boom to co-found an e-health company. And I just loved it. I liked starting a company. I love building. I love bootstrapping. And that was me. And now I'm on my second company, still very much in the thick of it, and still with my co-founder. Loved being an entrepreneur.
Wonderful, wonderful. The startup bug is something exciting, and we have in our audience a lot of startup entrepreneurs. So I hope they are listening to us, that they are not alone in this. Us women are really into it. So let's talk about your current company. So you disrupted the CXO and the senior executives' workplace by coming up with this radical idea with your company, Business Talent Group, in which you provided autonomy to senior professionals, senior highly qualified executives and professionals to choose what they wanted to work on. And could you explain a little bit as to how you came up and how you succeeded in disrupting the status quo where the chief executives and senior executives were part of the company, and now you provided outside them to come in and choose what they wanted to work on?
Sure. So we are a marketplace of over 15,000 independent professionals. I mean, our mission is to enable the very best professionals in the world who want to work independently, who want a different kind of relationship with work, to have the very best kinds of opportunities. And that's what we've seen. When we started the company, it was very obvious to us that there was an amazing population out there of people who were working independently, but there was nothing called the gig economy. And the number one question we got asked is, who are these people and why don't they want regular jobs? What do you mean they want to control their lives and work on what they want to? But we launched ahead. And today it's actually a real category. I mean, we hear about gig economy all the time. We hear about it a lot for sort of, Uber drivers and that sort of thing. But the fastest growing segment is this segment of high-end knowledge, senior people with graduate degrees, 20 years experience, who can really bring their expertise and add incredible value to a company while doing it on their own terms.
You should have coined the term gig economy when you started it.
I should have.
So there's an interesting, you bootstrapped your companies, and there's an interesting story you told me about your how you got money for this second company. Would you like to share it?
Oh,
I would
sure.
love for you to share it.
So business talent, I believe in bootstrapping. That'd be one piece of advice, if I can offer any advice, is, make sure you've got clients who are dying for what you have to sell. And there's nothing like actually getting out there and selling some. So we actually, I mentioned to Smita, we got our first check before we'd opened our first bank account. So that's what bootstrapping can look like. But we also raised money. really with a vision that this is a really big opportunity in a big market. And I think we've held pretty true to that vision.
So if I remember correct, you did your first raise during recession time in 2008, just like the timings now.
Very similar. Yeah, it was across 2007, 2008. We raised our first funding round with angel investors. Usually folks we had, some relationship with, or, someone referred us to someone else. That's usually how angel investing worked. An amazing, amazing group of investors. And what we found by working with, prominent individuals is that they could also be helpful to the business, be advisors to the business, which is the best possible kinds of relationship, that they're rooting for you, that they've got, investment in and want it to succeed. But that they're also lending their wisdom, their reputation, their networks to help you kind of move forward.
So these were angel investors. Mm-hmm. In the company, you had venture capital. And for Business Talent Group, you also raised private equity. So I'm really curious to see you went through the whole gamut of different kind of investors, the individuals, the venture capital, the private equity. Would you like to help our audience understand the differences between this and what is the process of going through and which one really works well in early stage or mid-stage company? Really,
I'm happy to. Yes, you're right. I have been through the process for angel venture capital and for private equity. I mean, angel investing is often very, very early stage. Usually it's, not more than a few $1 million because, most individual investors, again, you want to match how much you raise from an individual to their sort of capacity. But usually that's earlier stage. Venture capital can also be early stage. They typically are looking for, a 10x return, a 15x return on venture capital. They're really in the home run business. So if you're going out for venture capital, you want to walk in with a home run plan. If you've got just a more solid plan that is lower risk, but could have a nice 3x return, 5x return, often there's better sources of capital for you than venture capital. They're really after kind of the home run business. Private equity typically invests in more mature businesses. So my own company had been around for several years by the time we decided to raise private equity. And there's a lot of different types of different private equity firms, which I can talk about if folks are interested in. But there, they have a lower risk tolerance. They expect your business to be around and to get some money back out of it, and would often be looking for a 3 to 5x return to be pretty typical.
So your brand, it's important to build your brand to be able to get private equity.
For all of these, I would say having relationships in the community is really important. To match up with private equity, there are a lot of firms that specialize in different industries. So building a brand within your industry, building relationships and credibility, and being able to really prove the case. Even if you haven't hit the scale you want or all the profitability you want, being able to say, here's my benchmark customers, here's how the economics are going to work and why I can help you believe that story, and why your capital is key to getting me to the next level and helping me get the exit and scale that we need.
So it's more long-term for private equity firms.
Often a horizon would be 5 to 7 years. And you want to go in again, showing a plan of how they put the money in today, you're going to put it to work, but then within 5 years, you'll have grown, turned profitability, and really kind of can show that 5x growth in your value as a company.
Very interesting, very interesting. We'll talk more about fundraising, but I also remember you writing a couple of books, and you were on Dr. Phil's show, your book about the 2 income trap. That was very, very exciting, and how you were inspired to do share something about us, about your both the books, and the second one is All Your Money's Worth. Can you share? Would
Sure,
like you to share something.
To. So my journey is I co-founded first startup, and then I was pregnant with my first child and decided to leave that and go write a book. Maternity
Ah,
leave. I decided to write a book on my maternity leave. That's what I
good
did.
use of your time. I love
Exactly.
it.
And I absolutely loved it. I had a co-author. We wrote about financial distress in the middle class and how actually in America, the single best predictor that an individual will go bankrupt is that it's a mother with a child. And that's what kicked us off. And here I was, a young mother with a child. I loved writing a book. I will say to anyone, if you want to write a book, go do it. It is a labor of love, not a labor of profit. And it will take you, however long you think it will take you, double that. It's a lot. It's a big labor of love.
I understand. I never finished my first book. Oh, interesting. So, but you finished it, and then you and your co-author was at Dr. Phil show.
I did. We did the Dr. Phil show a couple of times. So the first book was really about public policy, kind of stemming from this hard-hitting data around middle-class distress. And Dr. Phil said, this is really impactful, but I need you to talk directly to people. That's what will have more impact. So we wrote the second book, which was actually a financial advice book called All Your Worth, which is actually, people still reach out to me today saying they're giving it to, they just read it or they're giving it to their niece who's going off to college. But it's really written again for, regular working people and how to manage money in an era where it's a heck of a lot more complicated than when it was when my parents were young.
Interesting. So you know how to manage money. So you're already ahead in the startup game because management of cash is king. Would you share a little bit more about, how cash affects a startup?
Sure. Well, one of the things Smita and I talked about is what to think about if you're an entrepreneur right now. And there's a recession going on right now. These are challenging times for a lot of businesses. And so being sure you've really got your plan B and your plan C, if this lasts a little longer than everybody thinks it will. Also, if you're in an early stage and you're counting on raising money, really thinking about how long you can stretch the monies you already have out to be financially independent and not relying on that is a smart way to manage during recession times.
Very, very interesting. Then the other thing that I was concerned about, and I would like to know, is that, being a co-CEO, when you have, I remember I had a CTO, he and I were both co-founders in one of the companies, a tech company, and we had a client, and we understood both of us understood the requirements very well, and we had to show a proof of concept to the client. So in the next meeting, we were supposed to be presenting a plan. My CTO was so excited, he went and developed the whole product and wanted to show that. And we had not gotten the business. So we had to meet up and be in sync and pretend we didn't know, like we were getting the requirements and stuff, and then we did. So you have to be very, very much in sync with your co-CEO and decisions and everything. How do you do that in your companies? Because your first company had 5 co-founders, and the second company, you and your women co-founder is there, and you both are co-CEOs. How does it work?
I was also in my books. I was a co-author. So I think that's my trend. I think of it as I'm raising my 3 children and my husband's my co-parent. So I think my co-CEO is a little like a co-parent of this company. Forgive me. I know that's a, more female analogy, but it works for me. It's all about trust and communication, just like parenting, honestly. One of our rules of thumb has been we communicate all the time. We don't make big decisions without the other one. But if we're ever in a situation where one person makes a decision, the other one backs them. That's sort of one of our rules, that we, have a high degree of trust. And, over the years, that trust backs itself up. You walk the walk. And you remind yourself, just like with a co-parent, I'm so much better off to have this partner. I mean, we actually get to take a vacation and know that the other person's going to be on it and watch the company. And Or when you're really worried about something late at night, you know there's someone that you can tell the real deal to, which sometimes as an entrepreneur, that's hard to do. So it's worked for us. But I will say, with if you really want to have a co-founder, get to know them well. You will spend more time with them than your spouse on many, many days. That's a relationship that really matters.
Very interesting. So it's a marriage that we have to, outside our personal marriage, it's a marriage of the trust and communication with people to ensure. So you have to balance work marriage with home marriage. Interesting. And it is the same for everyone. So, coming back to your current company, Business Talent Group, you disrupted the status quo by coming up with this gig economy. Would you like to explain a little bit more as to how you got your initial talent that you had that in the marketplace? How were you able to market to them, as well as how were you able to then convince the clients to be able to use them? I would love to know that.
So we started a business. My partner and I were actually doing independent consulting ourselves. We were out in the market. I had a background out of McKinsey. She had a background out of industry. We had an early client. We did project after project. And the client said to us, "This is great. You have more expertise. You're from my industry. You have more expertise than I get from big consulting firms. It's a fraction of the price. Where can I get more?" And we said, that actually really sounds like a business. So as I mentioned, we raised money, we bootstrapped, we launched the business. Initial talent, a lot of it came from our networks. And then I went out and built networks, places like McKinsey Alumni and Harvard Business School and all of those kind of places. I mean, today we have a reputation in our market. We like to think that if somebody's committed to working independently, they often know a Business Talent Group. Other colleagues will tell them about us. But we also have a whole talent recruiting team that's out in the market all the time, scouring LinkedIn. Make sure your LinkedIn profile is up to date, and posting on various boards and that sort of thing to really build it up. On the client side in the early days, we went out again and we built relationships. I mean, that's our kind of value add in making this marketplace. There's so many talented people, but if you're Smita interested in working independently, you can't tell every company, hi Google, hi Microsoft, employ me. You can't be your own salesperson and be all over the world. So that's our job. And over time, we've really built a whole sales and marketing infrastructure to be out in front of, we're serving over 40% of the Fortune 500. I mean, we're really out there creating visibility for this amazing network of talent and in a different way for people to be able to get work done.
Interesting. Very interesting. And so sometimes I feel like I should join you. So I think there will be many others who would be like, once they've done their entrepreneurship, done their companies, been there, done that, this would have autonomy, do work as you please. So I think our audience would also like to know a little bit more about, what should they go if they are an early stage startup? What should be their first areas of getting funding? They should not approach fundraising. They should not approach private equity. They should also like to go. And with this question, Amelia, I would like to turn to my colleague to ask other questions. If you can start answering this question of mine.
Sure. I mean, so for very early stage startup, I think angel investing or venture capital are usually the two major sources. As far along as you can get in your startup before raising money, the more value you'll have. So if you're able to pull together your whole founding team, if you're able to get a beta client, if you're able to get a beta product out, just enough to show more proof of concept, that will really increase your value and make you more attractive to funders. So, try and get that bootstrap going first. For angels, it's very much about who you know. Ask for introductions, talk to everyone. Sometimes groups like TIE can be an amazing source as well. really work the networking. On venture capital, it's really the same thing. You don't want to go in cold, ask for introductions. It's actually sometimes easier that even if somebody's not able to personally fund in your business, that they're happy to make a warm introduction for you to a venture capital fund. Lots of people have networks in that world.
Great. Kanchana, please go ahead. There are some audience questions. I would like you to go ahead and take those. Share those.
My thing is muted. Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Awesome. So that was wonderful, Amelia, to just hear about your journey, and how you have raised 3 kids, right? Were they all born in the business?
One was born in the book. The second one was born as I was launching this business. We started on the business plan while I was pregnant, and then launched it after she was born. And the third one was born during the business. So definitely my businesses and my children have been a commingled journey.
No, hats off to you. And then you have the book going on, and then you are a serial entrepreneur. I mean, that's a mouthful and a handful, so congratulations on all your success. I mean, I know there will be a laundry list of things to say, how did you balance all this? So we're not going to go down there, because I really feel like, life-work balance is a very personal thing, right? How much time you have to give back and your passion again. So what is your plan in the next 5 to 10 years? Where do you see yourself? You've done so much already.
Oh my goodness, what a fun question. I love this. And I feel I should have, no more kids.
Okay.
With 3 of them. I mean, at this point, I'm really deep in my business, and I think about just kind of growing it to the next level and the next. I just feel like I want to be at a stage where we can provide as many opportunities for this amazing network of professionals as they want. I want to be at a stage where this is a utility, where companies wake up and they say, I've got this problem. I can either, call McKinsey or Bain, or I can call Business Talent Group. And this is a different kind of utility in every single company. So I've still got big dreams and a lot of ways to go at what I'm doing.
No, that is just beautiful. That's how it should be. I mean, when you have the energy and you have the network and so much changes around us, we feel like, we want to be part of the change. We want to be part of that evolution and innovation. And if you see, 20-year career, if you see the last 10 years, so much has changed. And so second question for you is, there are a lot of young graduates, right, in their early 20s. I don't know if we call them millennials still, because millennials are now 30. So they are always wondering, right, do we go the entrepreneurial path or do we go entrepreneurial path? So what is your advice to somebody who wants to climb up the corporate ladder, like a Sheryl Sandberg or, Satya Nadella, or all of the, and Indra Nui, likes of those, versus entrepreneurs that, of course, in Thai, you're going to find, more than what you actually expected. So what is your advice for the young graduates?
We hire a lot of young people, and actually we're hiring right now, folks kind of for entry-level roles. I do think immediately entry-level, it's really good to get some experience, whether it's big corporate or working for another startup, but to, learn a little about the business world. But if the entrepreneurial path is calling to you, go for it. If you're loving the corporate path, that's fantastic. I really think both can work. I also think it's not linear. I see some of the very best careers go back and forth. And I see it back and forth all the way. I see corporate to entrepreneur, back to corporate, back to entrepreneur. I've seen those. And those are often some of the most skilled executives who love their career. My main advice is life is too short to do something you're not enjoying. So look hard for what you love and find people you like to work with. It's all about people.
Yeah, especially with co-CEOs and co-authors, absolutely, you need to get along really famously with each one of them. So no, that's great advice. And so we have a few questions from the audience. By the way, those were my questions. So thank you. I get first right of refusal on the call. I'm asking the questions, so let me ask some of those. That is wonderful. So let's see. Here is a question from Christine. Says, do you serve companies that are privately held in the 1 million to 100 million space? You have noted large public corporate companies. I'm wondering about a marketplace for those smaller businesses.
We do serve smaller businesses. I mean, we've served a lot of smaller businesses. We've also served mid-cap and private equity-backed businesses, and we've served nonprofits. I mean, really, our core expertise is knowing how to structure for success, knowing how to tap and promote the very best independent professionals. And that can be for really any environment, large or small. We do serve a lot of smaller companies. We do ask companies to pay cash. So, you know, even if it's a startup or an earlier stage company, and that's really for the professionals themselves. We value their time and believe that they should be, you know, fairly compensated for that. But we absolutely do serve smaller companies as well.
So, you know, I'm just looking at it from a women's angle, right? They say most women-owned businesses grow up to $1 million, right? That's like the threshold to break away from that. And second of all, most of them go out of business, you know, the first year. So longevity is a challenge for many businesses. I think any small business, right? Not just women, but any small business. And especially in today's, you know, environment with the pandemic. So, you know, how do we even navigate the present day? So, and I think what I really liked is you said you can bootstrap, right? So many people think that, oh, I've developed a product. If I don't get an angel or a VC, there is no tomorrow. Right? So tell us a little bit more about this bootstrapping for somebody who's just getting started.
So for bootstrapping, the key would be to really hone in on who is your customer and is there something they would support right here, right now? There are customers who will lean in. If you've got your product partly developed and they're interested in it, maybe you can say, look, if you'll provide me some early funding, I'll give you a preferred license. I won't charge you. I'll let you have it for free for 2 years. There can be creative deals to lean in with your customers, but that's usually the place I'd recommend to start is with your customers. If you're a B2C model, figure out if you can get some early customers. There's nothing like early adopters. It will also make your business so much smarter. You know, I think one of the great things that happened is a more agile methodology, making it out there but a view that an entrepreneur should not go away in a hole and dream up what their customers want and come up with a perfect product. You need to be out there constantly testing it, you know, with real clients. And sometimes you can get money that way too to help fund that effort and keep you going.
I think this question may be a good segue. It says, as a business talent group is a marketplace, did you face the chicken and egg problem, and how did you go about it?
Yes, there's always the chicken and egg problem, and you just do it. You just do it. I mean, if we had a client who was a little bit ahead of the talent pool, then we worked like crazy to build up that talent pool as fast as we could. That's always the case in a marketplace. And whenever you find a little imbalance, you have more of one side than the other, then you know where you need to spend your time and energy is building up the other side.
Great. I have one more question from the audience. We're getting a lot of questions, by the way. So whenever our time is up, please let us know, Aparna, because there's just so much over here. I think this is a great question. It says, you just noted that you ask your clients to pay cash. Do you mean that they pay for an entire engagement at the start of an engagement? And also, will you please expand on your business model?
Oh, sure. I'm happy to expand on the business model. So our business model is that we charge a fee on top of the consultant's fee that's sort of all rolled together, and it's a pay-as-you-go model to a client. So we might charge a client, you know, $1,500 a day, which includes our fee and the consultant's fee, and it's pay-as-you-go. No, we don't always ask that they prepay for an entire engagement. I mean, typically, you know, again, these are sort of standard commercial terms. There might be some retainer and then a pay-as-you-go model. All I meant on the cash piece was, you know, just fair compensation for somebody's time as opposed to, you know, working for sweat equity and that sort of thing, which could be a great model to bootstrap an entrepreneurial company.
So can I ask one more question, Kanchana?
Sure, go ahead.
So here, so Amelia, Kanchana started asking about women entrepreneurs. That is one of the things that in 2018, like 28% of women entrepreneurs were there, but a lot of investors would not invest in a women-owned firm because of the stereotypes. Like fighting the stereotypes is very important, but because of the stereotypes, even if they had good products and stuff, it was harder to get funding. Do you have any advice based on the two companies that you started that you felt that that would really help women entrepreneurs to ask for funding?
Sure. Smita, I remember sharing a story with you when we were talking about this. When I co-founded my first company, there were 5 of us, 3 men and 2 women who started the company. And an attorney came in to give us some advice about, taxes and setup and such. And he looked around the room and he said, he was giving his standard spiel, you could tell. And he said, well, this is important to protect your wives. Oh, wait. Or your husband. This is the first founding team I've ever been in. And this was a guy who dealt with all the companies in the Valley for years. He said, this is the first founding team I've ever dealt with that had women in the room. And you could see him kind of really step back. And so it hit me. Yeah, I just had charged ahead. I hadn't thought about it being particularly exceptional. But yeah, there weren't that many women. Look, my own experience has been, I haven't felt that or seen a lot of, resistance to investing in women. What I see is a lot of really strong networks and that a lot of money gets invested through networks. And it's, I think, often that, men network with men, that's sort of, and vice versa. So my advice is be really thoughtful and deliberate about your networks. Cultivate them. They're precious. They will be with you your whole life. Really cultivate women in your network and senior women, and really cultivate men and senior men. That's often the path to fundraising. And when you decide it's time to go out there and raise money, man, put your best foot forward and be bold. Be bold. That would be my other advice.
So you are saying embrace your power and be bold and go ahead. There's no difference between men and women. Just be there and get there. Just like Kanchana, just like you, just like me, Dharti, everybody out here who's empowering other women. Thank you. Thank you.
Do we have time for one more question? I think so. So I'll wait to kind of, flag us if we are going over time. I thought this was a nice question, which I think it's a monologue and debate in most of our heads. So, because most of us started with a corporate job, right, Amelia? I mean, none of us went out of school. Very few of them, of course, go out of school to start a business. But usually you're there in corporate America for a few years before you venture out to become an entrepreneur. So we have a question here that says, when is the right time? Or the right moment, when you're in the crossroads and then you just got to snap and, go on your own path. So what is that right time?
There will never be a right time. It will never be easy. It will always be hard. It will always be harder than you think. And staying on the corporate path will always be kind of the road of less resistance and be easier. And that's fine. I mean, I think the right time is when you've got a great idea and a great partner and you're feeling it and you're thinking about it all the time and you can't imagine not doing it. I mean, that's sort of the way to jump in on it. But no, there's never going to be, a shiny path that says, now this is easy. It'll never be easy.
So, people are talking about, I don't want to use the word again and again, pandemic, but many small businesses have caved in. Yet there is this window of opportunity where there are so many new ideas out there. I mean, I think just starting with, hospitality or, education, people have come up with all these out of the box innovation. So how do you view this current situation? Because somebody was saying, in 2015, if somebody asked you, what's your 5-year plan? All of us got it wrong for 2020. I don't think any of us anticipated this, right? I mean, you're talking about sales quotas and, all those different milestones that you wanted to achieve this year, which is kind of, you're probably functioning at about 75%. But then there are entrepreneurs that, make use of this time and come out with something, that could be life altering, and it could be a great gift to the community. So what is your thought process on how this current situation?
Well, like you said, a lot of businesses have struggled. It's hard times for a lot of sectors out there. A lot of this is sector dependent. If you're already out there with a company, pivot and pivot again. This is not the time to sit still. Every business I know has had to adapt and adapt again. As I said earlier, cash is king. So being really, really thoughtful about, what are the expenditures? How can you most thoughtfully kind of stretch your cash to make sure you've got what you need to survive? This may be a moment, again, depending on your market. There may be a moment to grow. It may just be a moment to survive, and that's okay. I thought actually what you said at the start was right. Nobody saw this coming. And so, I think we all had to take a deep breath. If you had a moment of panic, that's pretty normal. And now it's time to, figure out the plan and adjust. I also think there's going to be a couple stages of adapting. I've already seen that out there in the corporate world. I think there was one moment kind of back in March that there had to be a big adaptation. And then I felt a real pivot again in July as businesses are again rethinking, okay, if this is the new normal, and I suspect we'll see another pivot here later this year.
So, looking at a lot of entrepreneurial startups, right? Suppose, it's 12 months, 24 months. You were saying that, VCs are looking for 6x, 10x ROI. And private equity, of course, is a totally different league. If you're going to private equity, by that time, you're well established, right? So we can kind of safely assume that. But I think when is the right time to cut your losses, in a startup?
Oh, that's a heartbreaking question. And I don't know.
I know. Yeah, that's something, that's people don't want to talk about it, but it's there, right? I mean, especially now when you look at the small businesses.
It's a great question. I don't know if it's one I've got a good answer to. I'm pretty stubborn. That's probably not necessarily my strong suit on when to cut your losses. I mean, it's very personal. And I think some of it also is very much about kind of the cash situation. And are you seeing real client momentum? Being really honest with yourself about that. Because there's a difference between, asking yourself, do I have real proof points? And as soon as the economy turns, this is really going to take off, or
can you sustain?
Do I not have those proof points, which might lead you down a different path.
And also if the ability to sustain this year and maybe, a couple quarters next year. But of course, we have been hearing, we're all part of TIE. So we hear there's a lot of money, there's a lot of VC funding available. But I guess the most important thing is to go past that first barrier, if you would. I have one more question here. How do you manage when client asks for a unicorn candidate?
Oh, that's our favorite. That's our specialty. It happens all the time. So there's two answers to that. One is we're very good at talking to a client from, instead of tell me all the list of things you want all the attributes you want this person to have, they'll be a genius in my industry, and they'll be based in Des Moines, and they'll have gone to my alma mater. Instead of giving me that whole list, talk to me about what they need to get done. Focus on the project at hand, because often you can whittle away a few of those unicorn qualities and make it a more doable if you just really focus on what you have to get done. And in a network of over 20,000, it's amazing how many unicorns we actually have. It happens a lot that we will think there's no way this person exists. And sure enough, someone, we reach in and we're able to deliver. So we're in the unicorn business sometimes.
That's great.
Awesome.
Smita, you have any questions?
I think we are out of time. We've taken Amelia's time. So, Amelia, thank you so much for wonderful insights into how to raise funding, how to find unicorn clients, talent, and how to satisfy clients, how to survive in a pandemic, how to be bold and be yourself as a woman, have no difference. March ahead, no difference exists today. Startup is a startup, right? An entrepreneur is an entrepreneur. And you can take the world in your own hands. So I thank you for being part of this fourth episode. Our fifth episode is going to be on November 11th. And Kanchana would be leading it. I'll be taking question and answers. It will be interesting conversation with an entrepreneur. And
we're going down that path. So we're going to interview an entrepreneur who's in the C-suite, a female one. So we're super excited about that. So I think the audience always wants to know, right? You make it to the finish line, you make it to the top, either working for a corporate or on your own, right? So I think it's a debate. So we can have days and days of the same conversation. I don't think anybody has the right answers.
Right. And
Thank
So-
you, Smita. Thank you, Kanchana, on behalf of Thai women and being such amazing flag bearers. This is absolutely fantastic. Just the consistency of the programming, the color that you brought, the amazing guests. Amelia, thank you so much for your time. And, please stay in touch with Thai women and everything that we're doing. Stay engaged. As I say, watch this space. We've got all these powerful leaders on the committee. So we're very grateful for your time and look forward to keeping in touch. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Amelia, and thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Amelia.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
Aparna. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.